And welcome into this episode of the Pain and Panic Podcast as we continue our NFC breakdowns. Today we'll be doing the East and the West divisions. I'm Adam Sheets, joined by my co-host Chris Reynolds, as always. And Chris, we're going to get right into it with this one because we have a lot to say about the NFC East and West, because the NFC East is the home of the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, who went 14-3 last year. Chris, and I think the big question everyone's asking, of course, when you win the Super Bowl, how do you do it again? And I'm just going to ask you straight up, are they still the best team in the NFC?
I didn't even think so going into last year, but with the way they ended the season, I feel like you have to feel so confident in them. They have to be the best team going into this next year. They have one of the best receiving cores in the whole league. They have probably, in my opinion, the best running back. Definitely the best offensive line, one of the best defensive lines, a very good secondary, and a very good quarterback that we've now seen win the big game. So they have everything. They retained most of their key pieces. They lost some, but they improved in other areas. So there's no reason to think that they wouldn't win, besides maybe just luck doesn't go their way.
Yeah, I think the one big thing, they lost 8 players on the defensive side that were in their rotation, including 4 starters. That includes Josh Sweat, who was maybe their best edge rusher, most productive edge rusher they had. They also lost corners Darius Slay and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Slay, of course, old, but of course you had young guys that they're kind of filling those roles in, so we'll see how that works. They did lose Kellen Moore, an offensive coordinator. Obviously, the last time they lost an offensive coordinator, it didn't work out very well for the Eagles, and I think that's going to be the one thing. It's a Super Bowl hangover a little bit as well, but it's just when you lose some of those guys, how does everyone gel together? There's pressure. You're playing a first-place schedule. You get off to a tough start to the year. Obviously, Thursday night against the Cowboys in a division game, that's going to be tough in the link, and then they got to go to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs, and usually it would be like, oh, well, we get that extended rest from playing on Thursday. The Chiefs actually play on Friday night in Brazil this year, like the Eagles did last year, before the Chiefs come back for that game in Arrowhead, the Super Bowl rematch in week 2. So it's going to be a really tough schedule, but I think talent-wise, I think they are easily the most talented team in the NFC, and I think that then turns to probably the most talked about player on this team since last season ended, and that's Jalen Hurts. A lot of people are trying to debate, where do you rank him? Is he a top 5 quarterback? Is he a top 10 quarterback? Some people might have him outside the top 10 in their entirety. But what does he need to do in 2025? Because they're probably going to need to pass the ball more. I don't think you can rely on Saquon Barkley to continue to take that many carries, expect him to get 2,000 yards every year, especially with some of the injury history that Saquon Barkley has. Maybe want to take a little bit less off of him in the regular season to ramp him up for the playoffs. So it's going to be more on Jalen Hurts with that elite receiving core that we were mentioning with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. They also still have Dallas Goedert there as well, and a great offensive line. So what more do you need to see from Jalen Hurts to maybe see? He's a playoff riser. He's unbelievable when he gets to the playoffs. Maybe see that throughout a 17-game season.
I really think Jalen Hurts has proven everything he's needed to. 2 or 3 years ago, I guess now, he had that amazing regular season, and then last season he had the great postseason. Try to put it all together, but I don't think the Eagles really have to have this amazing regular season again. Just get to 10 wins, make the playoffs, and then from there, that's when you should have everyone healthy playing their best. I think Saquon injury concerns is going to be the best, main talking point for them, because he got a lot of carries last year, a lot of touches, which is great. You should use your best players, but with a running back who's older, it's obviously going to be a big question with injuries. So, got to save Saquon, and that's why Jalen Hurts might have to step up a little bit with throwing the football. And as long as the team stays healthy, they should be the best team in the NFC. And defensively, I think they're going to be just as good the whole season. So I don't know if there's a reason to doubt them unless injuries don't go their way.
I think defense are going to take a little step back. They were top 2 in a lot of categories last year. So I think they're going to take, just in general, usually when you're top 2 one year, you take a slight step back the next year, probably move down to around, I think they'll still be top 10 in those categories, but kind of maybe take a slight step back. And they were 29th in passing yards last year. I think that's going to have to go up because, again, I don't think Saquon Barkley is going to rush for 2,000 yards. Again, nothing against Saquon Barkley. It's just maybe you got to use him a little differently. Maybe Howie Roseman says, hey, let's, when we need them, let's use them. But, when we're playing a lower level team, we're playing, maybe we were talking about in our last video, the New Orleans Saints, who might be the worst team in the league this year. Maybe let's focus more on allowing other things to do, give Saquon a little bit more of a rest, not run him 30 times to try to get him those yards, because maybe we don't need to do that in those games. So I think the Super Bowl hangover is obviously going to be a big thing. The Chiefs have made it really weird because they went to 3 straight Super Bowls, but it's really hard to go back-to-back. And of course, the Chiefs almost just had a three-peat, but I think that's going to be the big question for them. How do they handle handle now winning. A.J. Brown had a great quote today that the Lombardi isn't loyal, so they got to win it again because the Lombardi will leave them if they don't. So it was a weird quote. A.J. Brown is full of quotes and full of entertainment when it comes to the sideline, so you got to love A.J. Brown, right?
Yes, he's a great. He loves to read, especially during games. It was funny because it seemed like that was a big issue during the season.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you know? He plays great. The team wins the Super Bowl. And I think the Super Bowl hangover really tends to hurt the team that lost because you do this tremendous loss and you just want to get back there. Whereas the team that won could kind of live off of that success a little bit, and then usually just it's not even really a hangover. It's just sometimes things don't bounce the same way, and you might lose a game. The Eagles almost lost to the Rams last year. You know, that was a very close game. They did, destroy the Commanders, but, even though Commanders, like Jaden Daniels played well, but they, had close games. The Packers was a closer game, and the division should be better. So I think if, that's the reason why it's hard is because it's football. A lot of different things could happen, but they've done a really good job at keeping all their main pieces. They'll still be motivated to go out there and try to win every game.
You said you think the division is going to be better because that's going to transition us to the next team, the Washington Commanders, who came out of nowhere last year, 12-5 last season. They made a great run, went all the way to the NFC Championship game, but they've decided, you know what? The Cowboys always do the offseason drama. How about we get in on it? We're not going to pay Terry McLaurin, and now Terry McLaurin wants out. So Terry McLaurin has officially requested a trade after a contract dispute as of August 4th. When we were recording this, nothing has happened yet. They haven't traded him. They haven't decided to sign him. That's going to get him back to playing. Right now he's holding in, but what are they doing with Terry McLaurin when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal and now saying we're not going to pay your number one receiving target?
I think that Terry McLaurin is trying to use this one season of real statistical success to validate him being paid like a top receiver in the NFL. And he's very good before that, but I think he's probably asking for a lot. But I would be cautious as the Commanders. Terry McLaurin did nothing at the end of the regular season. I know because I had him in fantasy and he got me like 0 points or 1 point. And he against the better teams, he was getting completely covered and blanketed. I don't think he's in that top tier of guys, but I think he wants to be. And, you have the right to want to be, but whether or not you actually get paid that is a different discussion. So I think he's a very good receiver. I don't think he's in that top tier of guys. And it just depends how much money he actually gets. But I'm assuming he wants a big payday, which I don't know if he's actually worth it. But this happens all the time with all these NFL players. They have 1 year left. They want more long-term security. The other teams don't want to give it. And right before the season, they get it done.
So, Chris, you don't think he's been productive?
I think last year...
you realize
I think a lot of it, he has been a very good receiver, but he's been very inconsistent. But I think that's more about the QB play. He finally got a good QB, and last year was his probably best overall season, like week to week. Until the end, I actually don't think he was that good at the very end.
It was his third most receiving yards he's had in his career. He's had 1,000 yards in every season he's played, except his rookie year, where he had 919. I think he's been pretty good, and I think he's earned his money.
He's good. He's not in that top tier of guys, though. And I think Terry McLaurin has had very inconsistent week-to-week things. You've seen him go off sometimes, but other times he's just not. He's not Jefferson or Jamar Chase.
Well, no, but you pay him because your quarterback's on a rookie deal, so you pay him a 4-year big money contract, because then when you have to pay the quarterback, he's going to be off the books. So then you can renegotiate and find the next guy, but you have to pay him. You can't tell me that you expect, if you're treating your rookie quarterback right by saying we're going to let your number one receiver not play this year, and you're going to have to go into the year with Deebo Samuel or whatever's left of Deebo Samuel as your number one wide receiver.
I think Deebo's actually pretty good because going into last year, I think he had pneumonia and he was in the hospital before the season started, so he wasn't really able to be in shape, and there was a lot of things about him being a little bit thicker around the waist last year, but it wasn't really his fault. I think he's due for a good bounce-back year. Terry McLaurin, yes, he gets 1,000 yards, but he also plays 17 games a year, which is great, and to his credit that he's always out there. But statistically per game, he's solid, just he's not those other guys. He doesn't win you games like those other guys do. And I think with Deebo, that gives them some insurance that they don't need to overpay Terry McLaurin like these other receivers get. CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson all get big paydays. I don't think Terry McLaurin's anywhere near those guys.
No, but he can get the Christian Kirk contract, which is, I think, they're not offering him the Christian Kirk contract. So why aren't they offering him that?
He's probably getting around that, and I think that's what he's getting offered. I think he's a little bit above that. I just think he's going to look at. I think last year was clearly the year where, even if statistically wasn't the best compared to those other years, he still was getting a bunch of touchdowns and he was having great games. But I also think the Commanders had a lot of guys that were catching a lot of balls last year because the offense was so pass heavy and throwing the ball a ton.
Well, yes, but again, when the coverage has to shift over to Terry McLaurin because he's your wide receiver one, then other guys get to be open. But if Terry McLaurin's not there and you say, okay, well, now we can double Debo and do whatever we want with this guy and do whatever we want with that guy because Terry McLaurin's not there. I'm telling you, I can't imagine Jaden Daniels is sitting in camp right now being like, you know what, it's okay. We don't need Terry McLaurin. I don't want my number one wide receiver back.
They always support the guy. They always support them. I just think he's a very solid receiver. I just don't think he's that top tier guy. I'll pull up his per game last year, but he ended the season honestly barely doing anything, and it was a little scary.
Yeah, but he is scary. He's Scary Terry. That's his nickname. But it's just like what he does is he helps him and he gives him a number one wide receiver. If you say Jaden Daniels is not going to be better without Terry McLaurin than he is with Terry McLaurin, like he'll be better with Terry McLaurin out there.
I don't think he'll be better, but if you look at least in fantasy, last year he was ranked the 5th best receiver. The year before that, 29. The year before that, 14. The year before that, 24, 23, 24. He's usually around a top 20 receiver. Last year was his best season, consistently putting up stats.
Plus, first of all, we're playing real football. We're not playing fantasy football. The Commanders are paying him to play real football. That
reflects the stats of his season.
Okay, yeah, but I'd say he's proven it just as much, if not more, than Nico Collins, who's probably going to get his money. Like, Nico Collins is eventually going to get paid. And Terry McLaurin, you mentioned he plays 17 games. Nico Collins has injury problems, but Nico's going to get paid. Like, you have to pay him. If you don't pay him, then watch. Jaden Daniels is going to be out there without weapons, and then it's going to be another quarterback. We're going to sit there and watch and be like, man, he's really good, but he doesn't have any weapons for him. And now we're going to be sitting there like that. Like, you got to pay the weapons around him, especially when he's on a rookie contract. You're going to wait till he's making $60 million a year and then say, now we're going to have to go pay a wide receiver?
They still have a lot of issues with their line they want to improve. Their defense, they want to improve. Look at the Bengals. They put in money to the receivers. Now they literally have one of the worst defenses in the league. They have a rookie quarterback, which saves them money, and maybe give that to Terry, but I don't think they want to do that. They traded for Laramie Tunsil. They're trying to improve the offensive line. They drafted an offensive line with their first-round pick. And they're saving money elsewhere, but they're not a really big spending team like other ones. So I think he'll get a deal. He'll be paid a bunch. It depends what he's asking for, but I think he's trying to use his last season, which was clearly his best season, to validate his asking price, which I think is scary for the Commanders.
Well, yes, every player does that. That's how business works, but okay.
But I think most players don't have that one outlier above the other ones like I do think he had last year.
Yeah, but he's wide receiver one. He's got to get paid wide receiver one money in his franchise. Not as much. I don't think he's asking for Justin Jefferson's contract. I don't think he's asking for Jamar Chase's contract. I don't think he's asking. He might be asking for T. Higgins' contract, and T. Higgins is wide receiver too. So he's like, I'll take that.
I would rather have T. Higgins than Terry.
Well, so would I. But the Commanders can't get T. Higgins now, can they? They got to stick with what they got.
No,
and what they got is Jamar.
I don't think it matters if you're receiver one or receiver three. I think it's about your actual value. Chris, I think he should be paid less than T. Higgins.
I'll admit it. Okay, you said it now. If he doesn't play this year, the Commanders going to be better this year than they were last year?
I think the Commanders will be slightly worse offensively without Terry McLaurin. I'm sure they could find a good offensive rhythm with Jaden Daniels. And I'm sure that Terry McLaurin's going to play. This is just how it works every year.
I know, but it's just why put yourself through this? Why do what we'll talk about the next team in the division next, but why put yourself through the headache that all this is when you could just say, let's just, give him his contract, so then we get a full camp, then they can actually practice together, get chemistry together. Him and Debo have never played together, so maybe trying to get those guys learn how to play together on the same offense, that could be a big thing, especially if they want to install new things with Debo Samuel now there. So
well, Terry's played with Daniels before. He'll be fine. I think that's a bigger chemistry issue that, they already have a good base for. I think they'll be fine. I think you do this because you're trying to save $5 million, which you could use for someone else that could really help the team.
Okay, so now we'll move on to, are they just going to be a one-hit wonder type season? Because last year, the Commanders, 9-4 in one-score games, which is an insane number. Most teams don't do that. And the big thing is almost no teams replicate that in a year-to-year world. So do the Commanders take a step back this season, even if they have Terry McLaurin, who you don't think's that good apparently, but okay, that's besides the point. How many receivers get 1,000 yards a year? Oh, not many. So what do they do here to get keep this going because, like I said, it's hard to win that many one-score games every year.
I think the main issues that it just does happen this second year sophomore slump. Teams start to now scout Jaden Daniels, a lot of tape on him. I think he might struggle a little bit, but I think, he wasn't great all of last year because he had that rib injury, and in the middle of the year, the Commanders kind of stalled a little bit. Then they really caught fire towards the end. So I think they could pretty much replicate the season in terms of like overall success because it wasn't like last year's crazy. As you said, the one-score games was very much in their favor, but I think that's what happens when you have a really good young, especially I think running quarterbacks are really good in those spots, just making things happen at the end of games. Jaden Daniels was great. I think that should probably stay the same. I think they could win a bunch of close games. And I think they're probably not going to be in as many close games because they should be better last year, another year together. And defensively, is still a big issue for them. But if their defense can hold on a little bit, I think their offense can really win them any game.
Yeah, I think they're going to be good. I think they will take a step back because usually you'll fall back to the mean. So 9-4 is an insane number.
True.
In one-score games. I think they're going to fall back because it's also going to be we're 9-4. Well, because we did have the ball last against the Bears. Well, what if the Bears had the ball last? And what if they use like 30 more seconds that, like just things like that happen where there's more clock use. So we don't have a chance to run the Hail Mary. We have to run a lateral play because we're 10 yards back. Like, it's just one of those things. So I think they are going to fall back a little bit. Now, granted, maybe they don't play as many one-score games as you were saying. Maybe they just get in a little more where there's more cushioning there, but we'll see what happens there. But it's a crazy number, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of, we were talking about the Vikings in our last video when they went 12-5 with Kirk Cousins. They had an insane one-score game record that then fell back to the mean. We'll see if the Commanders have that fallback as well. And now we'll move to the Dallas Cowboys. They were 7-10 last year, and I'm assuming Chris I wonder what your opinion on this guy demanding a trade. Micah Parsons is asking for a new contract. He still hasn't got one, and he officially demanded a trade. Again, nothing has happened as of August 4th when we're recording this, but he wants a new contract. Jerry Jones being interesting and showing how maybe he is one of, if not the dumbest owners right now in 2025.
I think the Cowboys every year for publicity will not give one of their top guys a contract just so they get free press, and then right before the season they get the deal. They're trying to do it again with Micah Parsons, but he's not having it. He actually wants out, which we haven't seen the other players do. Zeke, Dak again, and then CeeDee Lamb. So 3 guys on their team, big names, don't get the contract until right before the season, and then everyone talks about the Cowboys all year. Micah Parsons, though, seems like he's done with it. He's tired of it. He's tired of negotiating with them because I think they're trying to be unreasonable just so that these things keep getting prolonged because it shouldn't be that complicated. He's one of the youngest, really good edge rushers in that top tier. So you pay him probably the same amount that you're going to pay Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, who just got big contracts. I know it's a lot of money, but he's one of those guys that's worth it. They're just doing this just to get this attention of people talking about it all the time. And I think he's tired of it. I kind of am too, honestly. It's every year the same story.
What's different this year than with Dak and CD is Jerry's taking shots. Like, he's firing shots at Micah. Like, dude, you're not here, even though Micah's only missed 5 games since he's been there. Like, all this stuff at Micah. And I think Micah's more mad about okay, you don't want to pay me. That's business. Let's sit down with my agent and figure out. They won't say the agent's name. They're like, I don't even know who his agent is. They called Micah Michael. Like, they're doing a bunch of stuff that I think Micah's like, this is not how you run a business, like, with your star players, especially him. CD, like, the entire team's rallying around Micah. So, like, if there's any chance of like all the locker room might turn on Micah, they're not. They think this is all crazy and they don't know what's going on. The guy you feel bad for is Brian Schottenheimer, who's the first-year rookie head coach who has to deal with this in his first camp, trying to figure out how to be a head coach in the NFL, and now he's dealing with this Micah side story that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are really kind of putting out there. But yeah, I think this is not looking good. Micah, I think he's the first one to officially demand a trade in these type of contract issues since Emmitt Smith did it. And they actually went 2 games without Emmitt Smith, and then they eventually played him because the offense couldn't run the ball without Emmitt Smith. So we'll see how that goes. But, I mean, it does not look good. I would not be surprised if he gets his contract on September 3rd because they play September 4th because that's how they did it with Dak. But it doesn't look good, and it's a serious issue. And if Micah does end up getting out, like they trade him, or he just decides he's not playing to start the year because the contract hasn't been figured out and they hadn't traded him yet, can Dak kind of carry this offense through. Maybe it's just the beginning of the year or the entire season. They did add George Pickens to this team, so you think another weapon around CeeDee Lamb, but like, what can Dak do in this year? And first year with Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach, he had been the offensive coordinator the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're due for a better season. Dak got hurt last year. They add another real weapon for him. With George Pickens, him and CeeDee Lamb have good complementary games. They have, I mean, their running game wasn't great last year, so that should probably be the same or maybe slightly better. And offensive line-wise, I think it's not as good as it used to be, but it's not terrible, It's just, when you look at Micah Parsons, he's the main question, because when he played for them last year, they were a different team. So I don't know why they're wasting their time with this. I think Dak will be fine. I think he'll be, but they were 3-5 with Dak last season. So I think they're due for a better year, but if they're right, they could take the second spot in this division. I don't think they're going to pass the Eagles, but it's the off the field distractions every year going to derail this team again. I think Micah's not having any of it, because as you said, it's going to personal things and things that are just wrong about Micah not playing when he almost always plays.
Yeah, I mean, again, get back to Micah. Jerry Jones said if Micah get hit by a car tomorrow, and then we'd have to eat all that money. Like, what are... it's just...
That could happen to CeeDee Lamb or Dak Prescott.
Yeah. It's like, why even say it? Like, that's what, like... I know Jerry's getting old, and I don't want to say he's, like, kind of maybe losing it mentally, but that's where Steven has to step in.
He's already lost it mentally. Yeah. No, he's already lost it. Yeah.
I just was trying to be nice, but that's where Steven has to step in and say he doesn't mean that and kind of try to steer things back. But like I said, the one thing maybe Jerry and Steven just don't like Micah. Like, they have good relationships with Dak and CeeDee, and they just don't like Micah. I don't know. But yeah, I think Dak's in an interesting spot. So it's going to be really tough. But again, if he can get back to where he was in 2023 or 2022 when he was throwing for a lot of yards, they're going to need that. He's going to have to throw the ball a lot. This team doesn't have a real true number one running back. Their offensive line is okay. They've invested a lot of draft picks into the offensive line, so we'll see how they pan out. But it's going to be a lot on Dak in that arm, and I think George Pickens is a solid weapon, very inconsistent weapon. He makes some really good acrobatic catches, but isn't always there, for maybe intermediate route and things like that. So we'll see how they're able to use him, but a lot of promise there offensively, even though they have all the classic Cowboys in the offseason as well. Now we'll move to the last team real quick, the New York Giants. They were 3-14 last year, and we'll start with the quarterback situation. Russell Wilson has been announced as the starter. They still have Jameis Winston, and then they drafted Jackson Dart in the first round. So it's kind of weird to me that they announced Russ as the starter, but Jameis is still on the team, because it's like, because Jackson Dart has to be the backup. Like, you can't draft a first-round pick and have him be the third-string quarterback that's never going to get any reps. So, like, what are they doing here with this quarterback situation? I understand starting the vets early, but having two vets is kind of a weird spot, and where does Jackson Dart fit in?
No idea. No idea what this team is doing. I don't understand why they're deciding to get two veteran QBs and then one rookie that as the backup, but it's just strange because you feel like it's the last year for Brian Daboll in New York and Joe Shane, the GM. If things don't work for them, they're probably gone. So they let them draft their rookie QB, which, okay, you're going to give them a chance, get this quarterback. But then you let them bring in Russell Wilson, which, if you want to win right now to try to prove your system works, okay. And then they get Jameis, and it's like, what's the point of signing an actual competent backup QB if you already have a rookie that you want to get reps and you already have an older guy in Russ? And then they named Russ the starting QB. I don't really understand it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on behind, but I think they just want to try to win some games right now. But I think Dart's their future. But then they got Russ. I just don't get Jameis. I like Jameis a lot. I just don't want to see him wasted on a team like this. So maybe they trade him during the year and they could try to get something, but I don't really know. I like that they have Abdul Carter. Their defensive line is very, very, very good for a team that is pretty bad. They have Dexter Lawrence. They have Kayvon Thibodeau, and they drafted Abdul Carter, our guy. And they have Brian Burns there, too. So that's maybe like the best defensive line. It's up there, top tier of teams. They just need to figure out offense. I just don't know why they have all these guys in the QB room.
Yeah, they have the best pass rush in the league, if you ask me. Defensive line, when you put in run defense and that, they have a lot of edge rushers, not many run stoppers. So that's going to be maybe a weakness for them at times, but their pass rush is unbelievable. And Abdul Carter has been a beast in camp. Obviously, I watch a lot of them at Penn State, so I loved watching them. So soft spot for me there. But as you mentioned, they would have signed Russ and then just drafted Jackson Dart, okay. If they would have not signed Russ, signed Jameis and drafted Jackson Dart, say we're going to do the Tyrod thing, we're going to have Tyrod play for a little bit and then bring in the rookie, that would have made sense. bringing both in and then saying it's not a quarterback competition, it's Russ's job. So now Jameis is just there. It's like, okay, well, maybe you wanted to bring Jameis in to compete with Russ. Then we're only going to keep one of them, and Jackson will be the backup, and maybe keep one as the emergency third string quarterback. Like, it's a weird spot to be in right now. And if you're Jackson Dart, I'm hoping, I haven't read much about it, but I'm hoping he's getting reps at least if you're Jackson Dart, because if you're the Giants, you got to find out if this guy's going to be, he was a late first round pick, so is he going to be a future quarterback for this team? And they got to figure that out, because if they do let Joe Shane and, of course, Brian Daboll go, which a lot of people expect if they don't have some semblance of success this year, they're going to need to find out if he's the guy or if they have to go get a new guy. So it's a really tough spot in New York.
Yeah, they traded up into the first round to get Jackson Dart. So they clearly wanted him and to give him this opportunity, but they're not even letting him really get an opportunity. So I don't really understand the direction there. I like Brian Daboll a lot. I just don't think after that first year when they made that playoffs, I don't really think they've had a real direction. I think Daniel Jones was good that one year. They gave him a big contract. They've been fighting, to get out of that hole ever since. And this, I don't think is going to help much.
All right, now we'll just real quick, how many teams we think are going to make the playoffs out of the division? There were 2 last year, the Eagles and the Commanders. Chris, you can go first. Who do you think here?
I think I'm going to go with 2 teams again to make it out. I think it's going to be definitely the Eagles. I have the Commanders as the second team. I want to believe they could replicate that success. I think the Cowboys could make it interesting if they have a good season, but I just don't like the vibe from them this offseason. So I'm going to stick with 2, and I'm going to go with the Eagles one, then also the Commanders making it as a wild card.
I'm going down to 1. I think it's going to be the Eagles. I think the Commanders, that one score wins record just really concerns me. Again, the Cowboys are, I think, shooting themselves in the foot, as they always do, and they have some health issues as well. So I'm going to stick with the one team as the Eagles. I think this division is slowly kind of dropping back down after they had some high-end talent. I think they still have the talent, but a lot of off-the-field stuff is really concerning me, and the Terry McLaurin stuff concerns me as well with Washington. Now we'll move to the NFC West. So the Rams won it last year. They were 10-7. They made some big-time moves. They added Davante Adams to compare with Puka Nacua. Got rid of Cooper Kupp, but I think Cooper Kupp kind of aging, kind of is really never on the field. So now they go get Davante, who's been available, and we'll see what he can do with Stafford. Stafford's injured right now, though, as well. He's been hurt through camp, so you don't know how that looks, but how good could this team be, and are they a Super Bowl contender now with, Davante Adams to pair with Puka Nacua, who, when he's healthy, is really good?
No, I think they're really in that Super Bowl bubble. They're in that teams that could really win it. Stafford, he's dinged up, but he's an older quarterback. They are saying it's fine. Puka Nacua, Davante Adams is an upgrade over Kupp and Puka does get hurt a lot. But assuming he could stay healthy and Davante Adams, that should be an improved receiving room. Kyron Williams has been there, and he's been really good. They also have Blake Corum as the backup. Solid offensive line. They've been trying to improve it, and they have a good defensive line and a, average secondary. So it's a good team overall with probably what I would say is the best coach in the NFL. And there's a lot of experienced guys on that team. They're ready to win now. There's no real future. They know they're trying to win every game. I think they probably should be the favorites to once again win the division.
Best coach in the NFL, but there's a guy who's been to 3 straight Super Bowls. Okay, I think this team's going to be really, really good. I think the injuries are concerned. And my other thing is getting through the regular season, because they have a lot of old guys. They've had guys who have had injury problems, and it just becomes can you just get to the playoffs? Like, get me to the playoffs. We'll see what we can do. It's just the injuries do concern me, and maybe just trying to get to that next level. I think they have the ability to do it, but it's just a matter of getting there and staying healthy throughout the regular season. Now we'll move to Seattle, who had a good season last year, 10-7, really quiet 10-7 for Seattle. They missed the playoffs, but they decided to make some weird moves in the offseason. So they get rid of Geno Smith, but they bring in Sam Darnold, who's coming off that great year he had in Minnesota, where he had over 4,000 yards. And then they let DK Metcalf go. They let Lockett go, but then they bring in Cooper Kupp. So initially I thought, okay, they're kind of just restarting a little bit. They're going to get younger. And then they bring in Darnold. It's like, okay, well, Darnold's still not old, so maybe you have a chance maybe try to continue that success, kind of do what they did with Geno in Seattle. But then they go get Cooper Kupp after letting some of the other receivers go. And it's like, there's a lot of lateral moves in my mind, and it's just a weird spot for Seattle.
Yeah, as you said, there's no real direction towards the future. It's all current pieces, but they're all worse than their other options that they just had. So I think Sam Darnold's going to be worse than Geno Smith was, I think DK Metcalf was better than Cooper Kupp. They lost also Tyler Lockett, who's still a really good third receiver on a team. They got DeMarcus Lawrence. They signed him, and they drafted a guard with their 18th pick. But I'm I'm kind of confused too about what this direction is. If Darnold could have another magical season, maybe they can compete for the division again. But I mean, Kevin O'Connell, we talked about, he is a very good, at least QB head coach in terms of getting the most out of those guys. I don't think that could really, I don't think you could get a better season from Sam Darnold than what you just got. So I have a hard time picturing this team competing for the division. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is really the bright spot for this team. I'm just kind of confused what they're doing, and they still have a very bad offensive line. And Darnold was bad last year under pressure, and now they're on a team that has one of the worst offensive lines in football. So I don't love that combination either.
Yeah, I think it's a weird spot. I like Mike Macdonald as a head coach. I think he's a good defensive coach as well. I think I don't think their defense is that talented, but I think Mike Macdonald does a good job making them better than what they are. I think that's really huge for them. But I agree with you. There's a lot of lateral moves that I think make them slightly worse than they were last year, which is like either blow it up or like try to go all in. And they didn't either really. They got rid of guys, but then brought guys back in that are similar. At the best, they're similar. So it's a really, really weird spot. And Cooper Kupp was really good about 3 years ago, but now he's had all the injuries and he's getting a lot older, and it's just a really tough spot for him to come in, especially be number one or a number two weapon, depending if JSN continues to ascend through their wide receiver ranks. Now we'll move to Arizona, who had another quiet 8-9 for Arizona. So the NFC West was just so quiet with teams that actually had somewhat decent records. But year two of Kyler and Marvin Harrison Jr., they had some positives, and they've been really positive in camp so far this year. Jonathan Gannon, the head coach there. So what can you expect from Kyler and Marv, Marvin Harrison Jr., somewhat disappointing first year. I think a lot of other things went into it other than maybe him just struggling, but, he's uber talented, and him and Kyler seem to be gelling a little bit here in their second training camp together.
Yeah, I have to believe that the Cardinals will be better than last season. I actually have always kind of liked Kyler. Marvin Harrison Jr., we saw him at Ohio State. He was, I think, one of the best college receivers we've seen. I feel like they just have to work better than they did last year. He had like 2 or 3 games that really popped, but everything else was kind of disappointing. And Trey McBride, I think, is probably the best, maybe the best tight end in football, at least one of the best receiving tight ends in football. You could have Kittle maybe as a better overall tight end, but Trey McBride was great. He only had 1 or 2 touchdowns last year, which is the bare minimum really for him, but they re-signed him or extended him. They got an edge rusher in Josh Sweat. They signed Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackle. They drafted another defensive tackle, so they're trying to get better on the defensive line, which is good to see. Their offensive line's average, but Kyler can run around and make plays that other quarterbacks can't make. Kyler might be like a okay quarterback overall or a slightly positive quarterback, but he can do things that other quarterbacks just can't do, besides maybe Lamar. So I always kind of like them. They're always a fun team to watch, and I really like that offense, and it should be better. And James Conner has been the Iron Man for that team day in, day out, just putting up stats, and we don't even talk about him much because it's not that interesting of a running back.
Yeah, I think James Conner, eventually he's going to get too old, so I think that's where he's trending right now. Jonathan Gannon, I think he can make that defense really good. He was the DC on the Eagles team that went to the Super Bowl in 2022 before losing to the Chiefs, and then he became the head coach in Arizona. He hasn't done bad there, like I said, 8-9. With a lot of other issues Arizona had last year, I think, that's not horrible for them, and can they maybe make a step? We'll see, but I think it's a really, really interesting spot to be in if you're Arizona and see what they can do. And last, we'll go to the team that a lot of people are talking about. We talked about worst to first earlier in the last episode, and it's San Francisco. 6-11 last year. They were bullied by injuries. I think they're the team that if they stay healthy, what could happen? They have a stacked roster. They're maybe a little worse than they were 2 years ago. Of course, Debo's not there anymore. They have Brandon Ayuk, who's dealing with some injuries as well. Really hasn't taken that step since he's got his money. And McCaffrey's been out. So we'll see. Like, what do you see here from the Niners, who it's kind of like the big question's health and how if Purdy can take another step because he just signed a big contract.
Well, when healthy, the Niners are one of my favorite teams every year. I've always believed in their main top guys when healthy. And McCaffrey has the tendonitis in both Achilles, and that's not an area of the body where you want any sort of injury possible. And unfortunately, he has that. Brock Purdy, though, he was good last year without all the options. The team didn't win a lot, but Brock still looked like a good QB, which was inspiring to see because now McCaffrey should be back, at least playing more than the year before. Kittle is always kind of dinged up, but he usually plays through things. Debo, I don't think they're going to miss that much. It's really, if Ayuk is there, that's a great receiver one for them. If he's not, they drafted some guys, and I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be okay. They probably have the most potential of any team that finished last in their division last year. Would be my pick to go from a last to first type of situation, just because we saw them when fully healthy. They were in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs and going to overtime. So I kind of really like this Niners team. I don't really want to buy into them being healthy because that's a huge risk, but I really think Kyle Shanahan is one of the best coaches. 3 minutes ago, Isaac Guerrero, their backup running back, is expected to miss a few weeks with a shoulder injury. That's not a great start for this offseason for them, but I just can't quit this team. And I think until Kyle Shanahan and McCaffrey stop losing games or stop winning games when healthy, I'll stop believing in them. But when they're right and humming and healthy, they are probably the best team in the NFC besides maybe the Eagles.
When McCaffrey starts being healthy, I'll start believing in them. How about that? I'll just flip your words
That's
around
fair.
at you because.
And when he was healthy, Adam, they were winning and making Super Bowls. One Super Bowl and the NFC Championship.
Yes, they were. And he's really good. But the issue last year I had was he was hurt, and then he went to Germany to get checked out, and the tendonitis moved from one foot to the other foot. And I'm like, how's that even possible? What'd they do over there? Like, what's going on now? It's like, it's just so much went on last year for that team. Good to stretch for Purdy last year. I thought he was serviceable, but I think he was far from. I think a lot of people that have been skeptical about Purdy could maybe, say they were right about him because of all the injuries. You took some of the Avengers off, and then he didn't really elevate everybody and play to the same level as he was when everyone was there. I think they're going to be good. They're going to be better than they were last year. They're not going to be 6-11 again. But I think there's definitely a lot of questions, and they also have the easiest schedule in the NFL in my mind. So I think that's going to be a big plus for them as well. So now we'll go to how many teams will make the playoffs from this division. Again, this is a talented division, but they only had one team. The Rams make it last year. So Chris, start with you here. How many teams are making it out of the West this season?
Well, I'm going with two, Adam. I don't really even have a choice because I already made my picks for the divisions. But I have the Rams making it, and I have the Niners making it too. And I think the Niners might actually win the division. I think I'm just going to buy into them being healthy. Because if you told me that every team in the NFC was completely healthy, I think the Niners would be the second best team in the whole conference. So I'm just going to buy into some upside with them. They had a lot of injury luck, but also they had bad injury luck, but they also had a lot of just bad things happen with the team, with a lot of players having to miss games for personal reasons as well. So it just seems like everything bad happened to the Niners last year. I'm going to buy into their upside potentially this year, and I have them winning the division with the Rams making the wild card.
But if they were all healthy, I'd have them third. I'd show the Lions ahead of them. But they're definitely up there. I have three teams out of this division. Rams and Niners, I think, are going to be really good this year. And then I'm buying into the Cardinals. I don't know why, but I think they can make the playoffs this season. They'll be a wild card team. I think the rest of the NFC maybe beats each other up, and I think the Cardinals have a good year. So I'll roll with the Cardinals. So now looking at our overall playoff teams, for me, I have the Eagles, Rams, 49ers, Cardinals, Bucks, Lions, and Vikings. And Chris, you have the Eagles, Commanders, Rams, Niners, Bucks, Lions, and Bears. How confident are you? We have very similar teams, just a couple changes here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to mix some things up. Because usually it's around two teams from each conference kind of seem to get changed each time. So, and just a lot of things happen differently. I'm buying into the Bears, and I think that's probably one of my riskier picks. And I think relying on the Niners' health is a riskier pick, but I think both of those teams have a lot of talent. So I'm pretty confident that if they're healthy, then I'm going to feel great. And if they're injured week 2 on the Niners, then I'm going to feel like an idiot. But I'm pretty good, and for my NFC Championship pick, I know you're going to have yours, I'm going to go with the Niners and the Eagles in it, because I think we're going to have a repeat from a few years ago. I think the Eagles are going to come out of the NFC again, but I do think the Niners, if they're healthy, they're probably my favorite team to watch in the NFC.
So boring. So boring. Out here, Eagles and Niners.
I think the Eagles is a boring pick. I don't think there's going to be a lot of people picking the Niners.
Chris, the Niners have top 10 odds to win the Super Bowl. There's a lot of people picking the Niners. Yeah, I know. That's why. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people picking the Niners because of everything
I didn't pick
you
the
said.
Lions. I didn't pick the Packers. I didn't pick the Vikings. I didn't pick the Commanders. I'm not going to pick either. I'm just going to pick the team that I actually think are the best two in the league or in the NFC.
Yeah, that's fair. It's just a little boring. Just saying.
I'm sorry, Adam.
picking the last two teams that played in the Super Bowl out of the NFC to play each other again. And it's just the last three
I
actually, because
think
the
the
Eagles made it the year
Niners this
before.
year is a pretty risky pick. I will stand by that.
They're almost the same team they were 2 years ago when they made the Super Bowl, and now they're healthy. Just saying, they're very similar.
They've lost some pieces. I think that they have a more interesting team. They don't have Debo, but they drafted some nice rookies for the receiver.
Ricky Pearsall. He does have some injury problems, and no, I'm not talking about the fact that he got shot. No, he actually has a calf problem. Okay, he actually has injury problems that don't involve criminal activity in San Francisco. He wasn't involved in. Ricky Pearsall did the right thing in that situation. I still feel bad for him because I thought he could have had a really good year last year, especially with all those injuries. Jawan Jennings really good too. You didn't even mention Jawan Jennings. I like Jawan Jennings.
He's also in a contract holdout right now, so
of course. Who else isn't? But I'm wearing my Super Bowl polo that I got from when the Niners lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So just very nice. But my teams, I think the NFC, I think the Eagles are the best team, so I think the Eagles are going to be there. And the team I actually have beaten them, or the one team that if you want to say any team in the NFL has the Eagles number, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers could make a sleeper Cinderella run here to the Super Bowl. I think they have all the talent. I think that wide receiving core is loaded. I think Baker continues to get better every year in Tampa, and I think he'll continue to take that step. I like the running backs they have. Tristan Wirfs is a great offensive lineman that I think hides a lot of the other issues. If you want to find holes in the rest of the offensive line, I think Wirfs does a lot of hiding that. I like the defense, especially with Todd Bowles, who seems to always be able to get that defense pointed in the right direction. He does a really good job coaching that defense. So I like the Bucs here. And again, a lot of it, we said this when we were talking about the NFC South, that division is so bad that they might be the one team that if you had to pencil one team in to make the playoffs, the Bucs might be your most confident on. Well, who else is winning it? Maybe Atlanta, but again, that'd be Michael Penix taking a big step this year. So I think the Bucs are going to be there. I think the Bucs are going to have a really good regular season. Kind of remind me, stylistically, not at all remind me, but remind me of, I'm a Jags fan. So you remember in 2017 when the Jags had the Saxonville defense and they went all the way to the AFC Championship? Kind of like that type of run where they just have a really good regular season in a very weak division and then able to pull out. So that's why I think the Bucs. And I think, again, they get the Eagles, and if the Bucs would somehow maybe get home field in that game, I mean, the Eagles can't play in Tampa Bay. They've lost their last two playoff losses in the NFC were both to Tampa Bay, in Tampa Bay. Last year, before they made their big run, right before the bye week, they lost in Tampa. So I think it's a tough place to play for the Eagles, and Sirianni hasn't been able to figure that place out yet. So going out on a limb, I think the Eagles are the best team. I think the Lions are going to be good, but kind of wanted to have some fun with this, throw out a fastball and see what would happen. So I picked the Bucs to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Interesting. I do think you're right that they have the easiest path to get to the playoffs. And I think, too, their receivers can actually beat the Eagles secondary, which is their weakness. However, I just think compared to the Niners, the Lions, and the Eagles, the overall talent is a big mismatch. And you have to beat at least two of those teams. Mm-hmm. That's asking for a lot. I think if the Bucs could really just destroy the NFC South, which they don't usually do, which is weird. They usually lose one to the Saints, and they lost twice to the Falcons last year. If they could actually destroy the NFC South, they could actually try to win or get the bye week, get the number one seed. So maybe I'm not going to see if it's even that crazy. I just don't think overall they have the talent, but I like you taking the limb, Adam. I respect it.
Taking a risk. I'm not taking, every team that wins, the last three teams that represent the NFC were the Eagles twice and the Niners. Let's just put them in the play. Hey, the Eagles will win. I want to have some fun here, man. Let's have some fun.
I think the Lions and the Packers, and I think they're probably more popular picks, but I understand. And I think the Rams, too, are probably more popular than the Niners.
Oh, way more. The Niners, well, it depends. It depends who you talk to.
I think you're a little overestimating the people's love for the Niners these days, Adam.
Chris, they lost a Super Bowl, and immediately after they lost Super Bowl, they were the favorites to win it the next year.
Yes, and I think after this disastrous last season, I think they're going to be lower.
Yeah, but I think Chris, you got to understand. There's a lot of people that are betting them to win the division. I think they might be the betting favorites to win the division.
I'll check.
It's either them or the Rams. I know it's very close. I know they're the best bet to be worst to first, because that's always a big bet people like to make, is the worst to first bets. So it's not really taking a shot. I just wanted to go out on a limb. I was waiting for you to say the Saints Cinderella run this with Tyler Shuck and make the Super Bowl.
I will not be putting that out there into the world. I actually would be happy if they did not.
Well, I mean, you should be mad if they're 8-9, but if they would make the Super Bowl, you should be very happy.
The Niners are 5th. according to FanDuel. Ahead of them are the Eagles, Lions, Rams, and Packers.
Yeah, so they have the 5th best odds. So I don't.
I thought that was good enough for you, Adam. I'm sorry.
They're not out. Hey, it's. I'm just saying. I'm just out there. It also helps. The Niners do have a really easy schedule, so I think they're gonna be able to make a push. Like it's not not outlandish to think the Niners are going to be in the NFC Championship game, and it's not out. Like,
Yeah.
If I had to bet, it'd be Niners, Eagles, or Niners, Lions. Like those would be, Niners, Lions, or Eagles would be my 3 actual. But I want to have some fun with the Bucks here because again, they continue to get better. Last year, they lost to Jaden at the buzzer on the field goal, so just keep improving. So we'll see what they can do. But that's going to do it here for this one. Next week, we'll be doing the AFC. Same format. We'll do North and South on Monday, East, West on Thursday. So you'll get all your coverage. Here's the preseason moves on. But it's been a lot of fun and should be a fun year. And Chris, we had some fun talking the NFC, even though you... what's the highlight? So you think Kevin O'Connell's better than Andy Reid, and you think that Terry McLaurin is a bum. Okay.
I think Kevin O'Connell's a great QB coach, and I think that Andy Reid is... very solid. Not maybe in 2025, but I think he's very good. And also Terry McLaurin, I think depends what money he's asking for. I just don't think he's one of those top guys. But I think that's what we've learned today. That's the takeaway.
3 straight Super Bowls has developed Patrick Mahomes into maybe the best quarterback we've ever seen. It took Donovan McNabb to 4 straight NFC Championship games in a Super Bowl. But okay, it's just. I guess he's doing nothing out there as the head coach. He's just standing there and watching, I guess. So, and going 15-2 and nearly going undefeated in the regular season. So
I think life and coaching are easier when you have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce.
Yeah, it's really easy when you have Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, a lot of people would say too, but those guys can't get it done. So it's just interesting, huh? JJ was drafted at a similar spot as Patrick Mahomes. So we'll see what O'Connell can do with him. So that's going to do it here. You're really hitching your wagon to a guy you said's going to miss the playoffs. So it's just
true.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it. Again, next week we'll have the AFC and we'll have some more fun. And Chris will get to tell you when we do the AFC West how much he hates Andy Reid. So that's going to do it. Thank you for joining. Please subscribe to the channel. Leave a like. You can get this wherever you get your podcast. And also go into the description here to subscribe to all our social medias. Hit the follow button on there. Please. We have a lot of shorts that will be coming out as well. Pain and Panic Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and wherever you get your social media as well. For Chris Reynolds, I am Adam Sheets. Thank you for listening and have a fantastic day.